The Brutally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia. For over 30 years, they have been the go-to destination for all your music merch needs. From working with today's hottest bands to create truly one-of-a-kind pieces, as well as boasting a truly massive online store, Rockabilia is your one-stop shop when it comes to band merch. Use our code BRUTALLY at checkout and take 10% off your total purchase order. Huge thanks to Rockabilia for their continued support, and now, on to the show.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brutally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is the returning Ghostkid, aka Sebastian Biesler, and this was a fun one. I've been trying to get Sebastian back on for quite a bit. Since the last time he was on, it just seems like, so much has changed within, what Ghostkid is as far as the presentation of the band, songs, kind of getting some more touring opportunities and so forth, versus it kind of being, I mean, really just kind of a baby band is the best way I can describe it, in the fact that I don't even know that a tour had been done the last time Sebastian and I talked. So it's been really interesting just kind of seeing things from afar and seeing how much has progressed and all the different changes and so forth. And, as you'll hear me make a comment of, Sebastian kind of has followed me as well. And I constantly actually think about the difference a year can make, looking at Facebook memories and seeing who I had on and maybe where they've gone on to. I mean, ironically, today, when I'm recording this, I was in my Facebook memories, and the episode I had posted with RJ City, who is now with AEW, and has since, when I did the conversation with him, I think at the time he was still doing indies, maybe had done a little bit of background work with WWE, but basically was just kind of on the indies and was doing a lot of stuff. And this might even been pre-David Arquette tag teaming and so forth, but was a thing where it's interesting to look back, a handful of years later and be like, now this dude has his own great show on AEW every Sunday, HeyEW, to see, obviously what he's gone on to do in the wrestling industry and so forth. And it's just one of those kind of reminders that, it's fun to pay attention to people wherever your entry point is for them and just kind of see where their career goes from there. I kind of famously made the joke on Facebook, I'm always the stepping stone of talent before it gets to where everyone else hears about it. And I just kind of, I kind of laughed at that because I've heard so many people say that, I can't believe you got, Brian Garris from Knocked Loose. And it's well, yeah, that was, when Knocked Loose isn't who they are now. I haven't had anyone on the band since basically, they were playing, 600-700 cap rooms and so forth, and, kind of on the come up before, being this behemoth of a band. And that's fine. I kind of enjoy sometimes that. I mean, I've always kind of been that way anyway with the music I listen to and finding bands and so forth. And then it takes a little while, and then everyone's like, "You ever heard of this band?" And I'm like, "Yeah, asshole. I fucking showed them to you a year and a half ago." Which reminds me, today I was listening to the new Balmora record that dropped, I think about a week or so ago as of when I'm recording this. That thing just, it's so weird. It's not very often that you hear a band that sounds like something old. It sounds to me when I listen to it, it reminds me of being, 16, 17, 18, into my early 20s, discovering all the bands, that are kind of considered, the OGs of the metalcore scene and whatever, and hardcore. It reminds me of listening to Trustkill bands and Ferret bands and so forth. And but it sounds new at the same time, and it sounds fresh. And it's weird to kind of have something kind of hit you where it's this feels, it really satiates an itch for something nostalgic, but it's something new. So I think I might be trying to work on getting those guys on the podcast soon, and kind of maybe talking about that, because I think it's an interesting thing that, I think so many bands, and going back to Knocked Loose is a great example. What Knocked Loose is doing doesn't necessarily like reinvent the wheel of heavy music, but what they're able to do is take from their inspirations and bring it out through themselves, which makes it feel authentic to who they are, while also then incorporating their own spin on it, which makes it feel fresh and new and keeps you as a listener very excited to see where they're going to go from there. And honestly, that's what has me excited. I mean, to bring it back to the guest, that's what has me excited about Ghostkid as a project, because I feel like this second record feels more of what Sebastian saw the project being. And so therefore, now that we're kind of have the permissionary period of like, this is what I want it to be, and this is how I want things to sound, now I'm more comfortable with it. Let's kind of really start digging into what this is going to become. And to me, that's where, as a fan of music and a fan of different bands who kind of think so far beyond just the music, and it's about the presentation of videos and a look and all these other things and the sonics that go into it. It's an exciting time to be a fan of certain bands and music in general, where you have so many people just really pushing the boundaries of their art. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Ghostkid. I'll talk to you on the other side of it. Yeah, no, it's funny, like, I was thinking somewhat recently, because I was talking to a friend of mine about just, like, how sometimes weird the experience of doing something is, and like, the successes, and the way that you kind of, sometimes because you're just so in it, you don't, like, all you're thinking of is, like, fuck, I'm just, like, so, like, in a million places, I'm not really focused on anything other than what I'm doing, and you kind of don't take a step back and realize like what's happened, where you've come, how far you've come. And it was funny because I was thinking about how at least on I think the podcast page, I know you follow that because I see you like watch the stories and stuff, and I was like, you were one of the first to do that, like from doing the podcast. And it was just kind of funny to think about how like the first along the way of something like, oh, it was kind of interesting to have someone follow me back or things like that. So it's kind of funny. Like I always see that you're always kind of watching, but it kind of, even in listening to the record today, got me thinking that I feel like you're probably more of a voyeuristic type person than more divulging a lot about yourself.
A little bit, yeah. Also, you already listened to the new stuff or what?
Yep, I got the record. Great. Got the record the other day. I've just been doing a bunch of these, so like I listened to it like twice today. I gotta say, at first, like the way the record starts to end, like with the last track, I was like, this doesn't really feel like it's not where I feel like the record should have ended. Like I feel like it was so aggressive initially, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, no, I guess it does kind of make sense to kind of end it more on a somber note, where it's just like, I mean, that's sort of like what it feels like it was leading up to all along, like from the lyrics I could pull out of it, that it's like, I guess that is the logical ending to this record.
Yeah, true. Because it's kind of like, I would say kind of like a concept album, you know, it's about the downward spiral of a Hollywood diva, you know, so that's the reason why kind of like this record's called Hollywood Suicide, you know. So the ending track is more like, okay, good, this is something like, it sums it all up, the reason why you started to live your dream and how it could end up, you know, like in a bad way. And yeah, that's the reason why I just kind of like picked this dramaturgy, like, over like all those tracks, you know.
Was there any pushback of, you know, Hollywood Suicide? Because I feel like in the day and age we live in now, a lot of people are, and rightfully so, very aware of like trigger warnings and stuff like that, that I feel like I could see a label being like, we just can't have that be the album title or a song title or anything. Yeah,
probably. I mean, sometimes, you know, on Instagram especially, is like, I mean, for my profile, it's not the case that I got problems, but I know that the artist who designed everything and so on, you know, when he tried like to like post a title or something, he got something like restrictions or whatever, but the message behind that is kind of like, it's more related to art, like living your dream. And I mean, if you're an artist, it's like you give everything and you go far beyond, what's like normal. Sometimes I'm asking myself, what the fuck am I doing here? Just working like 24/7 every fucking day, no weekends, no holidays. Even if you're sick, you have to work, because otherwise you're gonna lose money. And just for 45 minutes on stage, music, you write a record like over, I don't know, half a year or even longer, so you really have to love that shit to do it, So that's the reason why I called the album Hollywood Suicide, because Hollywood is always like this main city, which symbolizes like people that are coming, like getting over to Hollywood, try to live their dream, try to make a living out of that, So some of them make it and some not, but this is actually, it's kind of like suicide, really try to give everything just to succeed here. I don't know, to reach your goals, I would say.
It's funny because I remember talking to Yerky from 69 Eyes a while back when they were putting out their newest record. And it gets interesting talking to people that aren't from here in the States. And I think it offers a really interesting global perspective that I don't think a lot of people are able to really think about and put into words and have conversations about. Because to me, having been to Hollywood and stuff like that, I'm like, this is where people want to fucking come. Like, it's kind of gross. There's not like, I don't know, like it feels like a shell of what it once represented. But it's interesting to me that I think even the States as a whole, but we'll focus on Hollywood, that it still has this luster of, that's where I go to make it. If I can make it there, then I'm somebody. Yeah. And it's interesting that there's still that benchmark, and I don't know why that is, because I feel like, to me, it's long been gone.
I think, but people are still, because I've been in LA for 4 weeks, and that fucking really turned my whole world upside down. It's like, what I felt is like people are, how can I say that, they live art differently. So it's more like connected to your persona. For example, in Germany, it's like, okay, you're doing music, you're doing some kind of art, but it's not like really connected to the kind of person that you are, So, and I think, especially like in Los Angeles, Hollywood, whatever, is like, if you're an artist, that means something. I mean, that doesn't say if you're good or not, but it's definitely some kind of a lifestyle, and it's more accepted than somewhere else. If I compare it to Germany, I always use like that example. If I would have like this big fucking fur jacket on, in pink or whatever, and I'd go to a supermarket in Germany, people will think I'm fucking crazy, If you would do it in Los Angeles, it would be like a regular thing. It depends if the coat is cool or not. But you're feeling me? It's like it's so much more easy to express yourself. And in my country, it's like, it's so hard, like sometimes to step outside of the comfort zone. People they try to be safe when it comes down to art, and what I've experienced like in Los Angeles is it's completely different, So I think it's easier to discover yourself as an artist, and I think this is still alive.
Okay, so if memory serves me correctly, you made this record down here, like down in LA, right? Or did you make it back home?
No. I made it back home. I mean, I already started writing stuff, but I definitely can tell that has something like a huge impact on myself. Okay. When I was there, I felt like, okay, I'm changing because I can do whatever the fuck I want, and it just depends on if it's cool or not. But like I said, this was like the first time where I started, like, I don't know, express myself like a bit differently with the stuff that I wear, I don't know. This is that was the moment where I started painting my fingernails black and shit again, So the last time I've done that was 16. And like I said, so it felt good. And I really felt free, and I don't know, that definitely had an impact, even on my art, I mean, as well on my art. It's like, yeah, it was crazy. Well, my guitar playing is just putting backs in here.
Yeah. Well, because I was going to say what was noticeable to me, and I didn't have time today to go back and listen to our previous chat to just kind of refresh my memory on things, but something that I felt that I recognized in this one, and just kind of seeing following on socials and so forth over the last like 2 years or however. I guess actually it's been longer than that because I think it was pre-pandemic
Yeah.
that we did our first chat. So I guess it's been like 3 or 4. But I was gonna say is it.
Yeah.
I feel like something I was more focused on was, you had left this project that had a certain, name brand recognizability to it, and
Yeah.
then kind of striking out on your own, finding who you are, who are you at this point when you don't have the rest of these people, and listening to the record today and kind of, like I said, paying attention over the course of the last 4 years, it feels like this has been I don't want to say a fast, but it feels like it has been a very exponentially growing thing for you that you have felt comfortable in yourself finally.
Yeah.
And then you can hear it in the music because I feel like there's stuff on this new record that I just don't think you would have been comfortable trying to do. I think you were too timid to do it from my perspective.
I would say, like, on the first record, there was a lot of stuff I had to tell, and I mean, then there was COVID and so on, so we made it through some really tough times, like me and the guys, and but what I can say, like, over the past 4 years, I really understood a lot more about myself as an artist because, like, the first record was more like, okay, I really have to get a lot of shit out of my system. And now I'm a bit more conscious about everything, So for me, it's like, okay, if I feel something, so I have to listen closely what I want to tell myself. And the easiest way to do it is like, okay, I'm going to write a track about that, So it's, I've realized that, and I've realized, okay, you should sometimes dig a lot more deep than you did before, And I don't know. So for me, it's more like, okay, there is plenty of inspiration out there. You just have to focus on that. And I would say, like, the whole working process, writing tracks and so on, as well, like visually, just try to experiment a lot more. Just, I don't know, feel self-confident about that, discover new things and so on. And I think the consciousness really just evolved a lot over the past 4 years, and it feels great. I mean, right now, like, when we're talking about this concept album being a Hollywood diva, so I'm dressed more female, a lot more, so I'm wearing dresses on stage and so on, and it feels great because it's another, like, level to express my art and what I want to tell the people, So I think I'm not overthinking everything like I did it before. I just do it. I just do what I feel, and this is great. I think that is like the biggest progress, like, over the past 4 years, I would say.
Well, I mean, indirectly, I feel like that is a shining example of what I know, like myself included. That was a big thing for me over the pandemic and just the last few years is getting more comfortable in me, what I know that I'm capable of doing, being my true authentic self, whatever that looks like. And it's kind of always a work in progress because, I mean, you shouldn't be satisfied with just, okay, I hit it here and then now I'm good forever. Like, it's like, okay, like, what does it look like if I keep pushing? And to me, like I said, it just, watching from afar, it's like, okay, like, I think I guess it just really comes back to, it just feels like a slow manifestation of just like watching you be like, okay, I'm comfortable in this, I'm comfortable doing this, I'm comfortable showing. And so leading up to the new music, I was like, oh, I'm really interested to see what this is because I feel like it's probably going to be a lot more focused effort instead of kind of being like, well, I'm a little bit like just the unsureness of it all. Like, and I think that's something that as you get older, you just learn about yourself is how to feel comfortable in yourself. And I'm sure that it was probably scary, kind of going through some of these things and kind of adopting more of a visual aspect to the thing, which I think was always there. But I think you've really, like I said, just taking it that next step further, which has me really interested to see what the next thing is. Like, where does it go from here? Because then I think it's just going to perpetually be a thing about doing yourself because you're just like, well, I know I do this really good and I'm very confident in who I am and what this band can be. And
Oh, you muted yourself, I think. Oh, I can't hear you right now. Ah, yeah, you're back. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. My microphone.
Probably the wrong microphone. Yeah. Now it sounds better, I think.
Technology's so stupid.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, no, I mean that's the thing to me. Like when I listen to this record, and hopefully when everyone else gets to hear it, I hope they hear that growth and get that excitement too of, getting to go on this journey, because it's not often a lot of people get it. I don't want to say a second opportunity, but I mean it's like when you're known for one thing and then kind of getting to reinvent yourself more as who you are and wanted to be but weren't able to be. I think that's such an incredible journey to be a part of, and it's just hella inspiring to see people be able to do it and live their true selves, like their true lives.
Yeah. I mean, I think I came to the biggest conclusion, like for me, was like, okay, it's more about how you feel doing things. It's like you're surrounded by so many great artists and whatever, so it's so hard, like, to really focus on the stuff that you would like to do. So back in the days I felt kind of forced. Okay, you need to be heavy and so on and so on, and now it's for me like, hey, if it feels good for me, that's the reason why I'm doing it. So music was always like my biggest relief, and I don't know, like, if I feel shitty, I'm gonna write a song about that, So maybe it turns out aggressive, maybe it turns out a bit more calm, but this is, I mean, I accept it, sometimes you don't have to force yourself to do something differently, and sometimes you tempt to do that. So I just said to myself, okay, I'll just do what I want to do, So I'm not afraid anymore, like, that people are going to judge it. They're going to judge anyway, Some people like it, some not, but I just do my thing. And I think just to accept that, without putting a label on it and whatever, that's great. So I think over the past 4 years, I gained a lot of freedom, like, express myself and, like, being an artist and whatever, so. And back in the days, it was more like, okay, good, I really want to prove that I can do that thing, and I can write songs and whatever. And now it's more like, okay, I'm just enjoying what I'm doing, It's a bit more down to earth, like, in my head, like it was before, So I think that describes it in a good way.
Have you noticed when kind of taking that approach to just kind of being more authentically yourself, has it really bled out into other facets of your life? And how have you found that to be, if so?
I would say probably yes. It really changed a lot about the way how I think and so on. It's, for example, so I'm really thinking a lot about stuff, in general. So, for example, like a couple of weeks ago, I went to a house at the seaside just on my own, no smartphone and whatever, because I think nowadays life is so fucking fast, and you're surrounded by so many good things that inspire you, but your brain, it just can't, like, handle all of that,
Right.
And then on top there is the whole bullshit, every time I'm opening, like, social media, Instagram, whatever, is like, it feels like everybody else is working a lot more than I do, and then there is this pressure again, and then you look, I don't know, so you're just available for everybody, just being on WhatsApp or whatever, I think this whole process, like, changed myself. I don't know, so it was like, I want to focus more on things, just keep the things, like, how can I describe it the best way? It's a good example. So I was drinking a coffee without a phone, just me and myself, like, in this cafe, and I felt so weird, because usually you will just check your phone because it feels weird just to sit there, And that was the craziest thing I've done, like, over the past weeks, So just sitting there, just drinking a coffee, and I think what I want to do is, like, focus more conscious, with a bigger consciousness on things, because, like I said, it's so fucking fast. You get distracted, like, all the time. And sometimes it's just the little things, that make you happy, but you can't see them if you're just constantly distracted. I'm watching people sitting down, drinking a coffee, having an argument, just checking their phone, listening to music, whatever, How you want to enjoy one of those things, Just do whatever the fuck you want, but do it with some kind of consciousness. This is what I've learned,
It's funny you say that, like, literally in the last 2 days, calling out my wife is not necessarily the right way of saying it, but it's kind of that where, we will just literally be sitting there watching TV. You know what? Just got done eating, and it's like, hey, do you want to go do this? And I'm like, we just literally we're 10 minutes into this 40-minute show. Can yes, I know we can pause it and we can go do something, but it's like, how about we finish this thing? Because I get really tired of starting things where it's like, in our weekends it'll be like, oh, I'm so tired. I just want to hang out. I haven't gotten to hang out at the house. 40 minutes goes by. You want to go to the mall and go da da da? And I'm like, well, do you want to finish the show? And then it's like we get that, and then it's like, let's go do this, and it's just constantly never being satiated in whatever the thing is you're doing, always kind of chasing this inevitable. I'll call it a high. You're looking for that thing that's going to make you feel better than the thing you're currently doing.
Exactly.
And I try to just focus on the one thing where it's because that's why a lot of shit and passion I think just goes away, because you're just, I don't want to say burnt out, but it's you're not giving it your all attention. And I think that we're all guilty of that.
I mean, it's crazy, but if you gain that kind of consciousness, you can change things. And when I was at this house at the seaside, no smartphone, no whatever, and so on, just text messages with a regular phone. This is a fucking pain in the ass. You don't want to text, and it's so easy if you have an iPhone. Yeah, exactly. It was like that shit, So, and I told myself, okay, the only thing I'm allowed to do is I don't know, listen to podcasts, no YouTube, no doom scrolling or whatever, just read a book, and for real, it was the best fucking thing that I did. It was 10 days, absolutely not available for anybody, just enjoy the silence, and sometimes I've been just sitting there and watching the lake or whatever, so it's that was crazy. And I really thought it would be super boring. It would be hell because I stopped smoking at this point and so on. Just wanted to eat healthy, doing sports, all that shit. And I did all of that kind of And then I've realized, okay, sometimes you really need to calm down a little bit, just to be able to focus on some small things that probably make you happy, But yeah, that was cool. So I thought it would be hell, but it was great.
It's funny you were talking about kind of sitting in your thoughts and kind of dealing with things. So something a friend of mine that does a podcast, something that we talk about quite a bit is this nature of doing this is usually, we take, you give, but the medium is really good when you're able to kind of both give and take, and that's kind of how conversations actually happen. So you were just kind of talking about sitting in your thoughts and kind of working through things. Last night, I had it kind of fucked me up for a little while because I just didn't sleep because I guess I wasn't tired, and you could probably blame this on the weed I smoked before I went to bed or didn't go to bed. But I was laying there and I just had this thought of, can you think of something that happened in your life that really makes you how you are? And when I kind of really just kept thinking about that, somehow my brain unlocked memories of being a kid and thinking about how, probably I'm going to say 6 or 7 is kind of when it felt like that was the memories I was pulling up or the age that I remember being. And thinking about how my brother passing away when I was 2 and, I was older, he was an infant. And thinking about how as a child, I would think about these expectations potentially that my parents were putting on me because I'm the one that lived, and I have to not only be good for me, but I have to be better because I have to exceed these expectations for a sibling that isn't here anymore, and all these things. And am I a failure? And I even kind of laying there in the dark, I was just I wonder if this is where my fucking imposter syndrome started. That I felt like I never was going to live up to anyone's expectations, that I always felt lesser than, and I pinpointed it all the way back to being 6. And then even taking it a step further, being I remember when, it felt like my parents were being very, from my perspective as a kid, feeling very not letting me do things that I thought all my peers were doing. I didn't get to go to sleepovers and all that things. I was very overprotected as a result, which makes sense from being an adult and I understand it. But as a kid, it's oh, I don't know. And I remember thinking that it's well, I'm going to kill myself. And thinking about this at 6 or 7. but like thinking, and I kind of laughed last night or this morning because I was like, my brain as a child didn't understand what that actually meant. So I was like, I'm just gonna put the covers over my head, and then I'm just gonna like
Oh shit.
go to bed,
Okay.
and I'm because like
Yeah.
you have it articulated that when you die, you go to sleep
Yeah.
basically forever. So that was how my brain worked, and so like when I'd wake
Yeah.
up the next day, it'd be like, oh, I'm still here. But it was just like a very weird thought that I had, like where I just stumbled across it thinking this one thing, and it. I don't want to say it's fucked up my day to day, but it's really made me just be like, okay, that's a memory that I just unlocked from being like 6 or 7. If I
Yeah.
really start thinking back onto some shit, like what other things have made me become how I am and how I think still, 30 something years later, almost 40 years later. Getting a phone call. Can't hear you. Let's see if it's something I can control on my end. There we go. Should be good now. Oh. How about now? There we go. Oh, I hear something.
Again,
Yep, now I can
because
hear
I
you.
can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
1 second.
Wonder if your AirPod's disconnected.
Oh damn! What the fuck is going on? So probably I have to rejoin. Is this cool for you?
Okay.
Because I can. Okay, good. So I'm coming back in a bit. Hold on.
Okay. The joys of technology. Excuse me. That'll be funny. I'll cut back to this and I'll have a hood up.
Okay, I'm back again.
There you go.
Yeah, my parents called me. It's like every time somebody's calling me, connection's fucked up.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah. But yeah, where did we start? Yeah, so I definitely know what you're talking about. Sometimes you got those weird thoughts as a kid, and I would say it definitely has an impact on the person that you are, like today, because I mean, some of those things are super subconsciousness, I think, but it's like, um, yeah, I got something as well, kind of like that. I would say like the way my parents raised me, just made me the person who I am today. Especially like when it comes down to art. For example, my dad, he was always like, he was an engineer, and back at home he already did something like this. What is the right word for that? Like building things at home and so on and so on. So, and he kind of like built up this consciousness for finding solutions sometimes. So, and I think that really helped me a lot because it goes a lot. I don't know. For me, I kind of like it. It kind of like evolved. So sometimes I have more ideas than my dad nowadays. So but he definitely gave me the ability like to find solutions for fucking everything that I'm doing right now. And yeah, I think like the time when you've been a child, like I always grew up like, okay, I wanted to have my own thing, and I think without like my parents, how they raised me, it wouldn't be possible.
Is that something that you have talked to your at least your dad in this scenario? Have you like talked to him about that?
Oh, I always used to tell him, without your help, like, or how you guys raised me, I probably wouldn't be an artist, because it's like he I don't know. So like building things together with him and so on, that really showed me like, hey, you can create your future, or you can like make your ideas like become reality. You just have to find a solution for that. And this is like a mindset that I've been raised with, and yeah, I mean, here I am, It's like, no, but it's crazy. I think without that, I wouldn't be like, yeah, probably it wouldn't have become an artist. So I mean, it took a while. I was always looking for my thing, but music was definitely some kind of like, okay, I can decide how good I want to be, like in the stuff that I'm doing. So the only thing is like I became lazy after the years, but I can say, I can be pretty creative when it comes down to finding ideas, and like solutions. So I'm not the best musician, I'm not the best singer or whatever, but I can work with the stuff that I can do, and like can expand it like in some weird way and whatever. And I think, yeah, this is like something like the biggest gift my parents gave me.
I think it's probably also maybe what has allowed you to maybe tap more into creating more visual art with the stuff you do, because it seems like that's such a
Yeah,
huge
true.
part of your music too. Is
Yes.
it's not like it feels like, for as much as the music is obviously the foundation of everything, it seems like it's always
Yeah.
done with more of a and then I'm gonna do this with it. Like it's not just a
Yeah.
singular idea. It's like I have
Yeah.
this idea, and the music is only this little part.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've always been like that, but the cool thing nowadays, it's so accessible, like everything. So, for example, like Fuck Shit Up, like FSU, the last video that we shot. Um, so I cut the whole music video. I've never done that before. And it's like I never do things like the professional way, but I always give it a try, and somehow it turns out cool. So same with merch designs and so on and so on. Same with music. So like I said, I use like what I have, and I don't know, try to turn it into art, and somehow it works. I don't know how, but yeah. So, and then it's interesting because you start to learn a lot about that, because of course you wanted to achieve like what the vision, or like realize the vision that you have in your mind, and you find a way somehow if you just give it a try. And this is interesting, because it leads to somewhere. You don't know where, how it's going to look like in the end, but it's going to be something.
It's so funny you bring that up. Like you don't know where it's gonna go, but there's this sort of curiosity of like I want to do this, and like I
Yeah.
want to see if I can figure it out, even if it's just horrible and it's my way of doing it. I was
Yeah.
watching this like yesterday. I was watching the Tony Hawk documentary, and then there's this other like surfing documentary called, I think it's called Riding Giants or Riding Monsters, and it's this surfer who rides big waves. And
Yeah.
they went out to, I'm probably going to mispronounce the thing, but it's out in Portugal. And they're looking for 100-foot waves. And it's funny to watch those things back and forth, and kind of being very, very peripherally into those things. Like, I used to skateboard. I think everyone did at a certain age that's, around from the last 20,
Yeah, me
30
too.
years.
So by
But
the
it's
way,
a thing where,
have you
go
seen
ahead.
like this Chad Muska documentation?
I haven't
This
seen
is
it yet.
fucking
That's on my
sick.
list.
Oh,
Yeah.
you should do it. You should do it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But the thing that like I was tripping out over it. I'm only one episode into this surfing one. That's like I think 6 or 7 like hour part episodes. But the
Yeah.
thing that I just kept looking at is it's like you see these old guys now, like they're in their 50s and 60s
Yeah.
and so forth, and you're listening to them talk about like this uncharted territory, and like no one knew what they were doing, and no one knew how to do any of this stuff. Everything was being made up as it was existing. But then as they were talking about the decades and all the things that have happened since, and all the fame and adoration and all this stuff, and especially with the surfing one where it's like they're getting into like, okay, here's a coral reef, or a reef that's like 3 times the size of the Grand Canyon underneath this spot, and that's
Yeah.
what makes the waves just shoot up. Like it just goes through this tunnel system, and they have all these things where they're digitally reading all this stuff and they're watching the waves. And I'm like, for people who wanted to do everything but have a real job, the way that you're dissecting all of these things and learning literally the science and all of these things, it's like for as much as we want to shuck responsibility, it is absolutely insane to see how serious we take the things where you're like, this is a job, this is a skilled set that you have to do these things and carve a career out of it. It's fucking wild. But then the other part of me that when watching that, at least for the side of extreme sports, is what do you fucking do with all that adrenaline when you can't do it anymore and you're used to getting it? And I feel like that's the part where my brain is going now, where I'm like, what can you possibly do to fulfill that same need or desire to push yourself in some past everything that you know in your life to get that like ultimate high of like, I set out to do something and I did it.
I think you have to find new things, what I always used to say is like, your memories, nobody can take them away from you. And I think this is something, for my biggest fear was back in the days that I have nothing to tell if I would have kids or something, or I don't know. It's like sitting in front of a fireplace and have nothing to tell. Oh yeah, your dad worked like 9 to 5, like in a boring job, I know. So everything that I've already discovered through music and I just do what I love, that really taught me so many things about life. You probably, I don't know, wouldn't have had access to like in a regular job, so, and this is great. And I totally get the feeling like, okay, riding those big waves and so on. This is what I mean. Like, you have to love things so much that you will just go this one extra mile. And I think there are so many things about that as well with music, just try to do it differently. Try to do it one more time and again and again and again. Like there is a lot of failing and so on. Just you are learning till the point where you just reach another level. And I think this is just great, if you got the freedom just to do what you love and discover it, when there is no competition or whatever, And I think this is like the true essence of like, I don't know, being self-employed, doing art, how you want to call it, But this is, you really have to love that shit. And I get the feeling.
Out of curiosity, because I feel like, being into movies and documentaries and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
The idea of being responsible for putting together a visual thing, like I'm sure unless you knew hardcore, like you storyboarded your ideas and you're like, this is what everything looks like, and that's what it's going to be. But I've always felt like when you have infinite possibilities with all the like raw footage, how do you know how do you navigate to make it visually like the best that it can be? Because I feel like I said, there's so many avenues it could go.
So for me, it's more like when I'm writing songs, I already have like a little movie in my mind. I mean, that has never changed, So music in general, it's always like I can see colors, I can have a specific feeling and so on. And everything that I see, I try to like, I don't know, just try to realize it, I mean, I know that it turns out differently, like it's in my mind, of course, because it's impossible like to really realize what's inside my head. But it definitely is something like I never do stuff that I don't feel, and sometimes it starts like with a color. For example, when I'm listening to FSU, like, okay, it sounds kind of like industrial and rough and whatever, so we had to find something that really fits the aesthetic of the track, So I exactly knew, okay, that kind of colors is what I want to have for all the people and so on. And I always already got something like a vision in my mind. So the question is how to realize it, And maybe if you don't have the money to do like a big full production, think about what could be like the easiest way to do it, So yeah, this is how it works. It's pretty simple because I already see everything that I want to do.
I just feel like, for me, I feel like it would almost be daunting, just the fact that you could have unlimited ideas and potential to make something that it's like, where do you start when everything, like when it's like, well, I shot this literally the opening part of the song. I shot that
Yeah.
6 different ways. We have a wide shot. We got a single cam. We got, this thing. It's like, how do you, like I said, it's just a thing where it's like, it just seems so like the unlimitedness of I could make this, but then also, boy, I could really fuck this up by choosing the wrong things and making it not be
Well,
something. So
well, at least you tried, So I mean, you have to fuck
true.
things up if you wanna give it a try. But the good thing about like failing is like you every time you do it, you learn. And I just give it a try. So if it's not good enough, I won't take it and just give it another shot and whatever. So um, it's more like experimenting, because sometimes this is the only way how it works. Because at some point you're gonna find something that you like. And I don't know. So the best stuff that I created, I think, is like it's like by accident, or just keep it super simple. I don't know. It's like, for example, like the cover of that was actually interesting. So the single cover of Hollywood Suicide. I wanted to have myself like dressed as this Hollywood diva in how you call that, where you put the corpses in the dead bodies, like this zip bags or whatever.
Oh, the body
What's
bags. The body bags.
Okay. Damn, that was simple. Okay. So I wanted to put myself in a body bag, and of course it was not accessible. So what I've done was like, okay, I asked my girlfriend back in the days, like now ex-girlfriend, whatever, and I had this super weird looking plastic leather jacket. So I said, okay, so undress, like, and I'm going to shoot like that part. Just put the leather jacket over her, just taped it and whatever. And then I just extended everything in Photoshop, and now it looks like somebody laying in a body bag. But something like that. Probably there would be thousands of ways to create it more easy, but this is how I've learned a lot how to do things. So it's like by try and error.
Which kind of leads me into like an interesting thing. When listening to the record, I just kept thinking of stage production, and I'm like, what? And granted, obviously, with the tour you're doing, you're not headlining, so you got to be a little more probably compact as far as
Yeah.
what you can do. But it's a thing where I feel like when you get to do a headlining run, like I feel like you probably already envisioned what a stage looks like for you on a headline run. Am I too far off from that?
Um, it's more like, first thing of all, just to say it, because I've never said it before. I fucking hate LED walls because everybody uses that shit. It's the easiest way. But what I love is like real props. If you can see, okay, the whole setting tells a story. I think so. What we had, like when we started with Ghostkid, we have something like little lamps on stage and a lot of trash, like old shit and so on, and that had like a special character. So we tried to stick on that for a little bit. Now we're gonna have like those lighted up boxes. They are foldable and whatever, and I don't know, for Heavy Rain, for example, I customized the guitars of the guys, like putting some LED lights in there, and there is even a fog machine in the bass of my bass player. Like building with like two of those vapes, coming out of the bass and all that stuff. It's super interesting, and I think something like those small details sometimes matter. Just try to build something that looks unique. Oh, for example, the drum set we're using right now, this is something we just changed the rims, but the whole drum set is like I put some foil on that, like some prints in the middle and some different stuff that you can put lights in there. I really love like those neon LED light shit and so on. And for me, it's important that it creates a special mood on stage. But fucking LED walls, everybody can do that, I think. I like when it looks unique and you got something extra and special. This is what I think like it makes a different character like on stage. And if I could do what I want, there would be a lot of stuff. But I have to build it on my own, so it's probably going to take some time.
Well, it's funny because like in the last like few weeks, so I went and saw my friends in See You Next Tuesday. They played and they had this band called Meth opening for them, and their stage show, just the presence about them it was so captivating and like really interesting to me, because it was like, it wasn't quite grind or like shit like that, but it had those tendencies, but it was kind of a little bit more progressive at times. But their stage show was like, they just turned all the lights, had two like orange reddish lights on either side of like the drums, and then at the very end is like the band kind of slowly faded out of the set. So it's like, you know, the singer is done, but he's just like standing there, and then like the one guitar player on stage right stops, puts his guitar against his like cab, faces with the back to the crowd, in front of his like amps and stuff. Then the bassist is the next to stop, and then he does the same thing, and then it's just the drummer and the guitar player. Then the other guitar player leaves, but the drummer's still playing the beat that he was, but slows it down to like, or it's like, if it's like gung gung gung, and then he's waiting like 20-30 seconds and then doing it again, and then finally they just stop, and then everyone's standing respectively at their station. And I was like, oh, that's just so fucking cool. And all it is just literally, hey, we're one by one going to stop playing and being a part of the show until the show's done. And then we're backs to you, and it's just a weird thing. But I was like, visually, it was just so captivating. And I was like, all it was, two fucking lights that never changed color the whole show.
Sometimes and to me, it's a game changer. Yeah.
It is, but I think it's kind of... you know, being mindful of that, understanding, you know, how you want to present yourself. But then, you know, I looked at like a show like, you know, seeing my friends in Ice Nine, like over the last handful of years, and, you know, they do the LED walls. But I think what's been interesting about seeing what they do that I've not seen anyone else do is like, you know, there's a song where Spencer pretends to kill one of the people. And so when he does it, the blood splatters where he's standing. And so it looks like a blood splatter on the LED wall. And so it's kind of playing
that's all
within,
right, you know?
Yeah. And I think like to see how they do it, I think is interesting versus just being, here's a fucking LED wall and that's all it is.
Exactly. But this is what I mean. If you just use it like as something like an additive, like additive show element, that's fine, you know? But Ice Night Kills, dude, this stuff is like fucking theater, you know? So it's like you're watching a movie. And this is what I love about that, you know? If you can see, okay, so they got all those stage props, like you said, you know, he's killing somebody and whatever. And like, even if you have those LED lights and all that stuff, you know, it's just some additional stuff, and then it's all right. But some bands, like even the bigger bands, you know, they just, I don't know, they just have those huge LED walls, and of course it looks massive, you know, but I don't know, there are like 10 other bands that do the same stuff, and I think, you know, live you should like tell the fucking story, you know, and even if you just change outfits or whatever, you know, there are so many things that doesn't cost money or whatever, but just be a bit more creative than LED light walls, you know. So this is how I think, you know.
This might be a weird question, but like kind of like you said, like with there being a theme and a concept to this new record, I could envision you going further down the story aspect of it and doing like a graphic novel, which I know is something a lot of bands do now, but sometimes I don't feel like it's warranted. Sometimes I feel like it's a thing where someone's like, oh, we have an artist that's willing to do all the work, we slap your name on it, and there you go. Whereas I feel like I could see you taking the time to be like, all right, I'm actually going to work with the person, maybe even get into some of the drawing myself or whatever, but really flesh out this world, this idea, this story in a narrative and in a way that allows you to do it without necessarily having to be so cost prohibitive to flesh out your ideas fully. Is that something you could see yourself doing with this record, or want to do in general?
So when it comes down to other artists, like just to mention it pretty quick, it's like the whole artwork was designed by Ella Wayne Gacy, you know, this is his name, and like I just told him what the tracks will be about. You know, I sent him over the lyrics and so on, and he just created like this whole concept art, which was super fucking great. You know, so we met on the festival and so on. But yeah, so I don't know. What was the question again?
Do you see yourself maybe expanding Hollywood Suicide into like a graphic novel and kind of really fleshing out like everything about it more?
So you mean when it comes down to the live show or whatever, or
no, like just as a separate thing, like away from the music, away from you know, the live show, like a book, like a you know, an additive of content to this record cycle.
I actually thought about that, like to expand it a little bit more, and there have been something that we did, like I think we won't finish that stuff, which is a bit
Mm.
sad, but I wanted to shoot something. I call it like therapy sessions, you know. So I'm dressed like as the Hollywood diva, and there's actually one episode we already did, you know, and the concept behind that was like, okay, I'm like being in the role of this Hollywood diva, and I'm talking to a therapist, you know, and there are some flashbacks and all that stuff, really creepy stuff. And the cool thing about that, you don't know if the answer that I'm given is true or if it's
Mm.
just a persona like that I'm
So like
playing right
Psycho.
now, you know. A little bit, you know. I mean, there are like
Sorry, American
everything.
Psycho.
Actually, I never watched it. Don't tell anybody. But no, it's cool. So, for example, like if the therapist is asking me, for example, okay, what means love to you? And I would say
Mm.
something like this and that, you know, you can't tell if it's like my personal experience that I have or if it's just like the role that I'm playing right now, you know, if it's,
Right.
you never know if it's Sebastian who is speaking or a ghost kid at this point, you know? And I thought that would be super interesting, but we never had the time like to really realize it the way I wanted, like I wanted to do it, you know. Well, maybe it's gonna be something like an extra or something. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that was like the concept, kind of like I wanted to expand it a bit more, you know, to have something like additional content in this whole concept.
Fair enough. It just was something I could see this record kind of being expanded on more beyond what it is because I feel like there's more depth that you could kind of go into on it.
It is definitely. Yeah, but to mention one more time, like the guy who just designed the whole thing, you know, this is what I love about that. He totally understood the vibe of everything, you know, and I like that the art is like expanded on different levels, you know, stuff that I can't do, you know.
Mm.
Um, it's pretty cool. The whole booklet is like hand painted, you know, so
Mm.
everything that you can see, like every picture in there is like actually hand painted. It's like a big canvas, so you had to scan all that stuff, you know. And this is
Mm.
great because there is something like a different. I call it just let's call it a different art departure, you know, and it's connected to my music and the story I wanted to tell, and it fits perfectly, you know, as well. Like I don't know, the whole concept is like there is like a timeline in this whole thing and so on, you know, so there are so many facets, you know. I don't know, so I forgot about them actually a little bit after finishing that record, but it's cool. Even I'm discovering some things like on this record which is super interesting, you know. It's like, but you're right, there is a lot more depth in there.
I'm excited to go back and kind of because I think this is going to be a record that you're going to notice things like upon different listens, like or maybe like one song is going to stick out to you, or oh, I didn't notice this lyric, or some.
Yeah.
A lot of times with like records like this where it's kind of like sort of a storyline, I can't tell you how many
Mm.
times like I will end up messaging someone or whatever and be like, man, I didn't notice, I just found this like one lyric or whatever, or this like this note or this melody that was like kind of in this other song. And like I did it to a friend the other day. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I just realized, like, is this melody in this song from like 2 records ago that was in this, like, was the main bridge of this song? And he was like, yeah. And he goes, you're the first fucking person he's like, not even anyone in my fucking band realized that. And I was like, huh, son of a bitch. But it took me, like, the
Mm.
first record I was comparing it to has been out for like 7-8 years. So it took me the new record that's been out for like a year and a half, plus the 6-7 years since the other one, for me to realize that these two songs have something beyond like a melody or whatever, like that there's something that's maybe tying them thematically together that I
Yeah.
have to work my way through. And I feel like I'm going to probably end up noticing potentially some shit like that on this record the more I listen to it over time and get really
Yeah,
comfortable with it.
it's pretty interesting. For example, there are like two tracks. It's like with a name in there. You know, it's like Valerie and Dahlia, and it's like when we're talking about this depth thing. You know, it's like Valerie is basically the good side. You know,
Okay.
but it's our it's something like this. How can I say that? It's like I would say Dahlia is like the persona that I play on stage. It's like this more dark image and whatever with the contact lenses and so on. And it's like that's the reason why Dahlia is in the end, because it symbolizes the dream that is haunting her, like after
Mm.
being in that downward spiral. So it's actually like the bad side of that, you know. Like Valerie is like basically the name of the Hollywood diva, you know. So that's the reason why you got those two things, and um, that's pretty interesting because I've realized it kind of like later. Because in Dahlia, in that track, you know, it's like this is where she probably is gonna die, you know, which is
Mm.
Helena Drive, which is like the last address of Marilyn Monroe, and so on. And even in the booklet, it's something like that, you know. So there are a lot of like, how do you call it? Like a lot of connections, you know, and yeah, it's hard to
Well,
sum it up pretty quick.
I was trying to figure out listening to it because it's like with the, I mean, superficially, just surface level looking at it, it's like okay, everything kind of like fuck shit up and Hollywood suicide, like those track titles evoke something, but then to see
Mm,
Valerie and then Dahlia, it's like okay, those are names, those are very specific. So I feel like there's something
yeah,
about them. And then I was even trying to figure out okay, like is this about like the Black Dahlia murders and like anything
it's
tied
another
to that, or
connection.
like is like Valerie
Yeah.
somebody that I don't know who that is in the folklore of evil Hollywood or whatever, or maybe even the good parts of Hollywood. But it's funny that like my wave of thought, just in even looking at it before I listened to any note of music of that, I was like, I wonder if this has anything to do with these things, and this is somehow a bigger connection to the overall story. So good to know I
So
was kind of on the right page.
with Valerie it's pretty interesting because Valerie, I picked the name just because I um I did some microdosing with LSD, and
Hmm.
so we have something like derivate, if it's the right name, the right word in English as well. It's like it was kind of like legal, you know, so you could just take it and whatever, and it was 1 V LSD. So and the name was like Valerie. So
Hmm.
and I really like the name and I mean I really like the name Valerie, and I wanted to have it like as a symbol of a drug because on the album it's like Valerie, this is kind of like the turning point. Oh, please not again. 1 second. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
Ah, perfect. Okay, because my AirPods went off.
Oh, okay.
So with Valerie, this is the point where she really, I mean, before that, I guess it's Heavy Rain. So this is where she have like kind of like the first heartbreak and whatever, you know. And this is like probably one of the most intense tracks personally for me as well, because it's something like some shit that I went through as well. And after Heavy Rain, there comes Valerie, you know, when she got the first time into drugs and so on, you know. And this is where like the whole persona's changing. This is actually like the point where she's going really deep into the downward spiral and start to accept that, you know. So it's
Hmm.
like Valerie is like the pure person that gets lost exactly at this point in the album, you know. And in the end there is Dahlia, you know, who's coming after her and something like that, you know. Yeah, but this is like kind of like the story a little bit about that, you know.
So I feel like I would be remiss as
Yeah.
someone who kind of recently dabbled. Like I've done LSD not in a very long time. I've been more fucking
Mm,
around with acid lately, in addition to shrooms and stuff like that.
yeah.
Was this your first time doing it, or are you kind of more in like the microdosy kind of just doing it to not necessarily escape, but to just kind of be at like a nice like at peace with yourself, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, just feeling good.
um oh, it was a long time ago, you know, so I just did
Okay.
it. I just wanted to give it a try, so I started with like shrooms, but I just did it like really like for microdosing, you know. I never had a trip or something. I just was curious, you know. And like LSD microdosing, I can tell it definitely made me a lot more creative at some points, and you're just in a better mood, so you're just a bit more awake, but it's definitely not a game changer for everything, so
No.
I took it like, I don't know, for half a year or something, or even longer, and yeah, that's it, so it was cool, but not like that cool that I would stick to it forever, so, and I
Right.
just did it to be a bit more productive, but after that I found out I have ADHD, so now I get different stuff like with prescriptions, so it's better. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think for me, like, it was really interesting. Handful of times, like, it's always funny when people, like, I mean, on here, I kind of do a lot more recently because I just don't care. And
Mhm.
I think as a whole, talking about these things and how they maybe open up things for yourself, I think are good. Also with the understanding, of having a healthy respect for these things. And
Yeah.
I was telling someone somewhat recently, I was like, anytime I've ever done like any of these things, like DMT or, like LSD or like any of
Mm.
these things, something usually kind of profound like reveals itself because I think for me, and the thing I kind of like about it, and something I think Craig Reynolds from Stray from the Path said on a tweet like that, I think is so dead on about why I think people should try it. Because he was like, we're in our own heads so often that like sometimes you need to be a fucking passenger in your own life just to kind of like deal like to literally
Yeah.
be sitting in something and know that like you don't have control over it. Like, and so for
Yeah.
me, I think like indirectly, anytime I've ever done any of these things, there's something that maybe I just didn't want to admit to myself, and it helped me kind of really have to focus on it. Like,
Yeah.
I think the one time, like, a friend of mine got something that was like DMT from overseas that
Mm.
was a plant additive over here. And the crazy thing about this thing, though, was you could get to your peak of the high in like 3 minutes,
Yeah. Mm.
which is super awesome. Like, you mean I can stay at this euphoric feeling for as long as I fucking want and like have no repercussions of it? Like, that's awesome. Like, who
Yeah.
wouldn't want that? But the thing that it taught me is at some point you can't always feel good forever. That like there needs to be that
Yeah.
balance of like now life needs to happen. Now you need to feel the things that maybe you don't want to for whatever reason. And that was like a really big revelation to me of just kind of understanding that sometimes you need that pain, you need the sadness and so forth. And
Yeah,
the
that's
other
true.
thing it kind of taught me at the time was my now wife, her and I first started hanging out, and I was dating somebody and had been for like a year plus. And this person that I was dating made every excuse to not hang out with me. And my now wife randomly one day, like the week before I did this, like was like, I'm coming to hang out. And I was just like, fuck, I'm with someone and I don't want to make them feel bad by breaking up because like we put so much time and I like this person
Mm.
genuinely. But like someone makes me feel wanted and makes me feel good about myself and makes the extra effort to come see me and do things with me versus a person who makes every excuse as to why they can't. And so in the
Yeah.
middle, I had these two epiphanies where I'm like, I can't feel good all the time, and I need to see where the fuck this relationship's gonna go versus always wondering what if. Like
Mm.
that may not be everyone's end result, but to me it was that profound. I had two profound like epiphanies that night.
Yeah.
And then I think even doing, acid somewhat recently, it was just I think the thing that I've kind of come to realize is like I've done and lived my life that a way that's probably not normal. It's not for everybody, like the things that I do.
Mm.
But I'm a pretty good person by all accounts. I think I have a really great life, and a lot of it has been doing it my own way. And I had that
Yeah.
epiphany, like while kind of tripping, and I was like, this may not be everyone's life, man, but like it's the one I got, and I'm pretty proud of where I am and what I've done and all the people I have in my life that I think inspire me and are good friends and all that kind of stuff. And man, like there are too many people who think about these things or don't, and I think live a shit existence just because they don't want to
Mm.
push themselves in any way, shape, or form because breaking out of yourself and not doing something that's not normal is hard. It's the
Yeah.
unknown, and no one wants to do that like that. But that's honestly where the growth is of a person is in that
Absolutely.
uncomfortability. And to me, like it's why I advocate that if you are willing to go on the journey and understand that when you do these things, like you are at the mercy of it, and all the shit you're not willing to deal with is probably going to come up. and you just need to like work on it. And I think that was the other thing too, is having gone through therapy, I now have therapy ways to work through problems. So like if there was something I wasn't really super stoked on and it kind of was creeping up in my brain and I'm like, oh fuck, I guess I'm dealing with this. All right, let's go. So like last night, like when I was like high on weed, like I was just like, oh, I wonder how this thing goes. And then it started unraveling more than that. And I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
All right.
I think
And like,
for everything that you do, I mean, like related to drugs in general, so it's always like you need a right setting. So what I've realized as well, like with alcohol and cigarettes and everything, so every time you got the chance, you do it, And right now, I stepped away from alcohol like for a long time right now because I told myself, you got so many reasons why you should drink now. Even if it's Christmas, it's somebody's birthday party, you're having a barbecue, whatever, there is always a reason, But why you have to drink it? Just sit there, drink a glass of water, and just enjoy the fucking barbecue. You don't need a can of beer or whatever, But you do it like every time, and this is like what I said, if you say, okay, I wanted to try something different, smoking weed, taking acid or whatever, if you do it with that kind of consciousness, and you say, okay, I will do it like in the right setting or whatever. And what I told myself as well, for everything you need kind of like a purpose, It's like you shouldn't do it like, okay, I got the chance to take it on a party, everybody is drunk and whatever. That this is not like the right setting and like the right purpose just to do it. But if you say I wanted to try it because I want to probably find something out about myself, if you use it, just for a good purpose, then it's something that definitely just can improve a lot of things, But we do so many things like just because we have the chance to do it. I mean, like eating at McDonald's like every fucking day, you could do it, but just do it once a week if you like it, and then celebrate it and say, I'm eating a fucking burger today, and it's gonna be the fucking best thing ever. But people don't do it like this way, and this is what I mean. Like life is too fucking fast, So focus on the right things and enjoy it, like, you know.
yeah, I think the other thing too, like somewhat recently, someone was again kind of going back to like the doing things my way, and maybe it doesn't make sense to others, but like I remember like when I got my palm tattooed, and like granted it's mostly fallen out again for the second time, and people are just like, why'd you do that? I was like, I don't know, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
And they're just like, but it fell out, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go get it done again. And they're like, but doesn't it hurt? I was like, oh, it fucking sucks real bad. But they're like, then why do it? And I go, I don't know, because I just want to. And it doesn't hurt anybody
just tell
other
them
than me.
it was my shopping list.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are just my groceries. I forget them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I forget things, so I got to write them down on my body.
Yeah.
Kind of wrapping up, because I know you probably want to get back to the rest of your day or have more press to do, but you got the tour coming up in end of April. Is this the first time you'll have toured with Ghostkid here in the States?
Yeah. So I've been waiting like for a chance like that for fucking many years now, and now it's there, So like I said, I think, like I said before, I think like maybe in the United States it's like art is celebrated differently, music as well, and so I've been always waiting for a chance like that. So we are super excited like to do it, Because I mean, in Europe we played some shows and so on. We've been on tour with Bad Omens, but this is definitely like a new chapter for us, And yeah, it's the first time, so let's see how it turns out. It's gonna be interesting.
I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised, because a lot of times I feel like when bands come over here, they're gonna be like the first to four on a package tour, unless they've built up that fan base over here like that much. Like I think one of the only bands I can think of that did that to a certain level was like Him. I remember when they first came over here, and it was like, oh, you're headlining and bringing some pretty and having pretty solid openers, but you're already out the gates, first US tour, and you're already headlining. Like that's kind of ballsy. So to see you guys being like direct support for BVB, I was kind of like, all right, fucking get it. Because I feel like obviously that means you get a longer set time, probably a little bit more stage for some production stuff, and I think you're gonna really get to showcase what you do to an audience that maybe doesn't know who you are. So I think it's gonna allow you to put your best foot forward here in the States.
Yeah. it's a fucking great opportunity. I don't even know where that came from, So we just got this offer, and I said, "What the fuck is going on? We need to do that." And what was funny, like the night before we got this offer, we've been talking to an US booking agency, and there have been like discussions like with the label and so on. Oh yeah, so we're gonna aim for the United States probably like in the beginning of 225 or something. It's not the right time yet, so there are no offers. And I just said, hey guys, hold on. If there is gonna be an offer like that where the money is okay, I mean, of course, it costs a shitload of money to get over there. If it's like a band like that, I don't know, it's kind of like big, and fits with the music and so on, I said we should just consider probably like to do that. I'd like to go to the United States a lot more, like playing another European tour, and boom, like next
Right.
day there was this offer, so it was crazy. So the universe heard me, but it was really like that, so that was surprisingly, I don't know. So one day after that conversation, we said, "Oh yeah, fuck yeah, we have to do that."
Well, I mean, unfortunately, you guys are playing on a Sunday, so I think I'm gonna burn like a partial day off or something and come out to Detroit and come see you
Damn.
guys, so that way I can actually get a hang in real life. Obviously, we won't have a drink, but maybe we can, I don't know, smoke a cigarette or something. I usually allot myself one cigarette
I'm,
a year.
I'm, I haven't said that I won't stop drinking, So it's like I just, yeah, if the moment is good, I'm gonna do it, So, but it's time for me like to step a little bit back, Need to get back in
Well,
shape and so on.
I was gonna say, on a weird note, you don't. I'm gonna pose this to you. You don't have to. What was your like drink of choice? Was it beer? Was it liquor? And then did you have a
Uh,
specific kind that you liked?
it's always different, So I'm drinking beer if I don't want to get like too hammered, So, but my drink of choice was always kind of like gin and tonic, But I
Okay,
got so
good.
bored by that, like over the past years. I don't know. I mean, I drink it anyway, So, but so
Because I
the
was gonna
only
say
thing that I
one of the
really,
things I used to. I was gonna say one of the things I used to really enjoy doing, and I still do it. Um,
mm,
like when I went to Buffalo, I brought Patrick. Actually, an empty can sitting here. So we got these
yeah,
things that are. It's from Finland, but they just started bringing them
mm,
out over here. And a company here, Founders Brewing, it's a beer company. They
yeah,
dumped a shitload of money into long drink, so it's kind of a big local thing around here. But
mm,
they didn't have any in Buffalo, so I brought him the new flavor. But a lot
yeah,
of times when I go visit bands, I will be like, okay, like if you're a whiskey guy, all right, I'm gonna go to one of our local distilleries and I'm gonna bring you something that you literally can't get anything anywhere other than here in Michigan. So that way, it's like when you said gin initially, I'm like, okay, there's like 3 gins that I fucking love that
yeah.
are all from around here that you can't get anywhere else. That I could be like, if you dig this, here you go. And you're never going to get it unless you come back to Michigan. It's not distributed outside of here. So to me, I
Yeah.
enjoy doing shit like that because I think it kind of is allowing you to take in a little bit of the local flavor, literally and figuratively, of where you know where you're
I
at.
mean,
So
I'm pretty simple with that stuff, So when I was in LA, the most time, I mean, I just drank White Claw the whole time, So it's like I don't know, it's simple, It's like it has less calories, If you try to stay in shape or whatever, it just gets you drunk. Like if you just gonna have free cans or something, it does it does a good job. So maybe that's the reason why I just bought it the whole
yeah,
time, It's cool. I
yeah,
like it a lot, So it's not yeah. So usually I'm not drinking like to, I don't know, enjoy the drink. It's more really like, okay, I want to be drunk
social.
now.
Oh,
So
okay. Oh,
yes.
okay.
So,
Gotcha.
and yeah, this is what I mean, So my only reason why I'm drinking is like, okay, I want to be drunk now because life is fun sometimes, And but I used to live in Berlin, and you can drink like there every day, And it started to get weird every time I was drunk, like the last 20 times probably, I can't remember one single night where I woke up the other day and said, that was a great night, Every time was like I have like this kind of I don't know, after drinking depression or something, So this
Hmm.
started like, and I don't know. So I didn't enjoy it like that much, like the last times I've been drinking. And I said, okay, good, I'm gonna step back from alcohol. Like, I don't know when I had a drink like the last time, I guess it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago or something. I don't know. Probably on the last show that we played. No, the last show we've played last year. Yeah. No, it was like the 26th. I remember I was so fucked up.
I do
Yeah.
think, just like we were saying earlier with dabbling in various psychedelics and so forth. I think drinking is the same way.
Mm,
I think if like
yeah.
over the course of many years, I've taken breaks to kind of, not that it was ever a problem, but just to be like, I don't need to, and I need to
Yeah.
like kind of do that reality check with yourself where you're like, okay, I think I have control of it. Do I? Because if I didn't, then I wouldn't be able to be like, all right, I went 5 months without drinking and never even
Yeah.
thought about it. So it's a
So
thing
what
where
I
I think it's a healthy boundary to set for yourself if you think that there's nothing beneficial to get out of it, and just kind of step away from it
mm,
for a little while to get some clarity and the health benefits, obviously. But
yeah.
I mean, I've
True.
always been one of those people, as I'm literally sitting where I do a podcast with my two friends where I have whiskey and tequila right next to me. So it's a thing where it's like, I know that that's never gonna not be a part unless it ever
Mm,
becomes a problem. But it's like, I enjoy the camaraderie of sharing great beer, great whiskey stories, and all that
yeah,
stuff that comes
true. I
with
totally
it.
get that. I think it's always up to you. So when I was like at this house at the seaside, it was like I always used to tell myself, you can do whatever you want, but do you have to do it really right now? Is this what you really want?
Right.
And in those moments, you can, like, I don't know. So I caught myself like in so many moments where I said, okay, this is just some pressure in my mind. If I want to have a drink, I can have a drink, of course, but is it really worth it, like, to do it right in that moment? Just think about it. Like, you don't have to do it maybe yet, just maybe there's a better situation to do it. And this is what I mean. So if you're at the barbecue, just you don't have to drink. If you want to drink and you think, okay, good, now I'm going to do it, it's fine. But do with some kind of consciousness. Double check.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
Well, I don't really have. I feel like that's as good of a place to end it. Just using, as you were saying, just to have the consciousness to understand what you want to do, and like having intent and
Yeah.
purpose. Like, it's kind of a through line for the last like probably 5 or 6 months of this podcast.
Mm,
Is always talking about having intent and purpose in what you do, and I think a lot of
yeah.
times, if you sit back and think about that, I think it'll pretty much never steer you wrong if you're honest with yourself.
Mm, yeah. It's
Where
hard.
can yeah, no, it's and that's why sometimes you
Yeah.
drink it and or do drugs to get to
Exactly.
actually sit with yourself and really deal with the bullshit.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you, or anything you would like to plug online?
I think Instagram is the easiest way. It's like Ghost Kiddo. So that's always the way to go.
And then obviously the tour with Black Veil Brides starting, like I said, April 26th. I think it was the first date of the tour, and it
Or
goes for,
something
I think
like
you're going for like
that.
a
Actually, I don't know.
April
I
25th
always,
through May 25th. So you're out for a full month.
ah, yes. And before that, we're on tour with Blind Channel. So I'm gonna be away for 2 months.
Well, I'm looking
It's gonna
forward
be
to
crazy.
coming out to Detroit and catching a set finally. I feel like it's been a long time coming.
Oh yeah. Hope to see you there.
So that was my conversation with Sebastian, aka Ghostkid. Want to thank him once again for taking the time to chat. Kind of really enjoyed kind of the all over nature of it, and it's always great. And I always feel kind of stupid when I'm filling out the show like details, the show notes. And I'm kind of trying to give a synopsis of what the episode is in like 2 paragraphs, which honestly it's a lot harder than you think sometimes, because I do feel like, especially with having a repeat guest, that essentially this is you all getting to hear me catching up with somebody who I either through just doing the one conversation on the podcast am catching back up with, or in a lot of instances, this is someone that I either DM or have a text with, and we've built more of a rapport since that first time. And so really it is just you all getting to hear the conversation I probably would have with this person anyway. I mean, interestingly enough, this past weekend, as of when I'm recording this, my wife and I went down to Kalamazoo to go see Keith from Breaking Ben. We did a conversation that's actually going to be next week's episode. But it was a thing where we went down to go see him and hang out with him for a little bit, and was a thing where we kind of picked up the conversation from where we left off on the podcast, just a few weeks later. And to me, I always enjoy those kind of people that are willing to have that kind of conversation continue consistently, and it's just a ongoing thing. It doesn't always happen with everybody, but when it happens, it's really great. And so that's why I'm always appreciative of everybody who is willing to kind of go down the rabbit hole with me onto some of these kind of weird topics. And even something I'd kind of alluded to in the episode last week with Ray, sort of Sebastian talking about his sobriety and kind of how he's been navigating different things and kind of experiencing things for himself. And I love that. I love that people, why they have to find their purpose of what makes them work the best to their capabilities, and just kind of understanding who you are and what makes us go. And so here we are, another conversation talking about that. So I'm really looking forward to also trying to catch the show. The tour with Black Veil Brides starts April 25th in San Francisco, California. It wraps up in Los Angeles on May 25th. If any of you are around in the Midwest area, they are playing Detroit on May 5th. I'm excited to hopefully go rip a hang with Sebastian and meet him in person and see him. Sometimes like getting to talk to some of these bands that do not live here in the States, I'm reminded of what it was like being a fan of bands like him and a lot of other foreign bands where you had to be a more active and patient fan of the artist because it just didn't tour here that often. And we are very spoiled here in the U.S. With the constant barrage of tours that come through and all the great lineups. And honestly, it's just a reminder that this is a first world problem that a lot of other people have to go through as well. So I'm very excited. Hopefully this tour does really well, so that way the guys can come back over here in the States, keep touring, keep growing their name here in the States. And, selfishly, I just want to see the band a bunch. Yeah, it's always fun getting to see new bands kind of breaking over here in real time. You don't really get the opportunity to kind of see a band's first tour like that that has a name built around them. It's actually a point that I kind of hit on a couple of other times in some other chats that are coming up with some other people that aren't from here in the States as well. I'll talk about those when they are here. Start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with Ghostkid, you can find him on Facebook at Ghostkid Official, Instagram at Ghostkiddo, and Twitter at I Am Ghost Kid. If you would like to keep up with our podcast, you can find us at Brewspeak Pod everywhere you listen to podcasts. I actually just got an email today that another podcasting platform is going under, and I just can't help but think of all the people that are like, oh, you should be on this thing, and you should be on this thing, and then the thing isn't even a thing anymore. So anyway, speaking of a thing that is a thing, how about you head over to rockabilia.com and use our code BRUTALLY at checkout and take 10% off your total purchase order. I want to thank all the guys and gals working over at Rockabilia. The new Ghost skateboards came out. It was interesting. I think I have collectively come to really just have a disdain for Ghost fans. Because it seems like all they do whenever I see anything Ghost related, not just from Rockabilia, but literally like stuff online, new song, what's going on with the band, da-da-da-da-da. I gotta say, man, I feel like they have one of the worst fan bases that just makes the fan base makes it very insufferable to like even want to remotely like that band. There are a couple other bands that kind of fit that narrative for me. But yeah, it's always amusing to me to see Ghost fans come out and apparently love to hate support their favorite bands. But all that said, head on over to Rockabilia again. Use our code BRUTALLY at checkout. Take 10% off your total purchase order. And for the Brutally Speaking podcast, I am John, and I will see you all next week with Keith Wallen of himself, but also you probably know him from Breaking Benjamin. Maybe if you go way back at Elitist Way. But that was a fun chat. I'll talk to you all next week. Enjoy the rest of yours.